long as also think you should think about, and which it's such a main point, is discipline and making yourself what I call a sports betting blueprint. Figure out what you want to do with this sports betting. Let's just assume that you just want to make sports betting a some type of income for you per month, whether it's a little bit, a lot, whatever it is. Let's just assume that you want to make money. It's not really recreational for you. It's something that you would love to make a little extra cash for yourself. You need to have that discipline, and you need to make up that blueprint that's going to get you there. And where the discipline comes in is you got to stick to that plan. I can tell you what I do, and like I said, maybe it'll work for you. I think it's a good way you should start, especially if you're new at it. But again, you got to have the discipline, and you got to really write down a plan. What are you looking to do? What bankroll are you going to start with? We know that everybody don't even start with a bankroll, so you start betting small. Then you bet. Even if you're betting $10 a game, you put $500 aside and start betting $10 a game. See how you do after 50 bets. Maybe you're up $100 now. Maybe you could start betting a little bit more than the $10 a game. Before you know it, if you little by little, before you know it, you keep on increasing and increasing. I mean, that's what I've been doing. I started doing that 5 years ago when I decided to take this more serious. I just started betting, and putting back in, and trying to raise my, my bankroll. But we all know people ain't bet with. Everybody talks about bankrolls, and 70% of us don't even have bankrolls. No one start with it. It's hard to. I know you all have families and kids and all that, and it's hard to start with X amount of money that you're only going to use for betting. I mean, it sounds great, but realistically, no one's really starting out that way, or not many people are starting out that way. I don't think. But I think what you need to do is figure out how much money you're going to bet and stick to it to start. Pick a line. Like for me, I don't bet a straight bet over minus 140. I won't lay that money over minus 140 for a straight bet. I just don't do it. If it goes to 145, I'll stay off the bet. I know some guys play where they feel, well, if that number, the value changes to the other side. That's not me. I'm still betting this a team that I like to win. So, but that's my parameters. And I stick to 1 unit a bet. That's just how I do it. Most of the time, I stick to 1 unit a bet, or more than not, a half a unit more than I would go with 2 units or 3 units. That's very rare for me. But that's what I mean by a blueprint. Are you going to just bet money line bets and for now, or are you going to risk just X amount of money? Are you going to play like I said, minus 140, minus 120, minus 180, whatever the number is? I think you need to actually make a blueprint of what you're going to do and stick to it. It'll help you, and it goes into all forms. What we're talking about in this lesson right here really touches every part of sports gambling, from research to bankroll management to record keeping. It all goes in. That all goes into the blueprint, and I think that's what needs to be done. And what we'll go over, in the future, and we'll get more in depth, is exactly how I think you should start. One thing I could tell you as a lesson I would tell everybody is to start betting risk, not win. What I mean by that is when you look at when you go online and you look, it tells you risk or win. Do you want to bet 100 to win 100 and it's minus 110? Do you want to lay $110 to win 100, or do you want to lay 100 to win 90? I think you should, and it's what I do. Any kind of big bet, I just risk my 1 unit. If my unit's $100, if it's minus 140, then I'm just going to win less. I'm always never going over that $100, and that keeps me disciplined, and that keeps my bankroll not going into big swings. That works for me. And somebody that's new, it's something I think that they should follow. I've heard Pete Loshak talk about this years ago about betting risk instead of win, and for me, so that's part of my blueprint. So I just using that as an example. DJ?
Well, yeah, that has a lot to do too with your bankroll and your motive as well. Yeah. I mean, discipline off key is discipline. When we talk about sports betting blueprint, It goes down to what type of bettor you are. Because if you're a large bettor and you rather spend that 150 to make 100 than play 100 and only make 50,
Right.
because or even vice versa. Like if you got a couple thousand, you might rather want to pay the 1,000 and get the 900 opposed to laying, what I'm saying, the what would be thousand
The
ten or whatever,
1,100 for 1,000. Right.
1,100 for a
Right.
thousand. So your bankroll has a lot to do with that,
Sure.
and you definitely have to be disciplined enough to stay inside of that box, because you can't start doing it one way and then move over to another way.
That's
You know
right.
what I'm saying? And if it just makes way more sense if I'm betting $25, or if I'm betting $20, $10. Well, so let's take 25 for example, right? If you take $25, I'm not sure what minus 110 is off of
You
$25
win
off the
if you
head.
bet 25, you win 22.50. You're laying
Yeah.
27.50 to win 25
So it
basically.
is. So you got to ask yourself: is it worth losing that $3 or whatever?
Right.
How does
250.
that small difference affect what your whole blueprint is? And then when you figure that out, you can figure to say more or less if you should bet risk or if you should bet win. But that's just one of the many different ways to play the game and to make your blueprint. But when I think about discipline, I always think about my man Dom, because I've known Dom for years now, and he's one of the most disciplined cappers that I know in regards to playing inside his boundaries, continue to press his one unit the way he presses his one unit. And I'll tell you, because I've known Dom for a long time, he's went from like a maybe 3 or 4 game better a day to now he's probably sometimes end up laying like 7 bets for the day, especially in baseball. And that's just through his discipline. His discipline has led them there. His sports blueprint, remembering this and that and putting that together, has led him to those points and stuff. So yeah, discipline is key in almost everything we do, though, right? But
Yeah.
especially right here in sports betting, because the minute, why spend all the time to calibrate pays if you're just gonna trick it all off by not doing the right thing when it comes to the financing part of it.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Tricking it all off. That's a real good way of putting it. And that's why I say to start. I'm talking to somebody who's just starting out sports betting. They don't have much money. I'm telling you, you got to start with a low amount, and I think you should start with just betting risk, just to start. Even with that, the example of the $2.50, believe it or not, that could add up. After a while. So, but like DJ says, as your bankroll grows, then you could change that. Nothing says you got to keep the same blueprint forever, but to start out, you should give a good example, because you might have to change the blueprint. Your blueprint might not be working, but give it enough games. Give it enough time. Don't just give it up after 20 games or something like that. I talked today on my show, Light It Up, on Thursday mornings at 10 a.m. and on Saturday for the filthy plug. Um, I talked about today about the run hit error line, and it correlates along to that. You got to. I started using that only recently, but because I think I could find an edge, and I'm trying to use a formula. But what I talked about this morning is I've only done it for like 25, 30 games, and it's not enough sample size to really put out any kind of data. You probably got to get up to like 100 games, really, at least 50. And another thing I've always done that I talked to DJ about. I know a couple guys that do that. If I like a play, I like a bet, I'll go back to it again the next night. I'll go back to it even a third time sometimes. I don't just give up on the bet. And if you notice, a lot of times you'll make a play the next night it hits. Even though the different circumstances and it's coincidence, it just happens. But if I like a play, if I like something on somebody, like I'll back them, and I'll keep on going back to that a couple of times. But what I won't do is chase. I won't lose. There's a system called the Martindale system. That Martingale or Martindale system? The hell?
I think it's called Martindale.
Right. And it's and the simple theory is this: you bet 100. Let's just use $100 a game. You bet 100 and you lose. Tomorrow, go back and bet 200 on not the same game. Whatever bet you're going to make. You lose your bet for 100. The next night you bet it back for 200, and eventually, obviously, you're not going to always lose, right? So eventually, you're going to win, but you keep on doubling. If you lose the second night, then the next night you double up again, and you keep doubling until you win. Now, when the eventual win comes, a lot of times you're either going to break even, or if it's out of like 3 games and you win, you're actually going to profit. But that's something I would never do. But it's a theory that people do, and I guess if you have that bankroll to do that, again, maybe it works. The theory is you're never going to lose forever. But hell, to me, that's just the opposite of discipline, and that's the opposite of what I could ever tell you what to do. That's for sure.
Hey, here's my approach to the Martindale. Try it on blackjack or roulette or something like that. That's the best place to try to experience it. It'll happen. It'll happen so fast. You'll realize if it's something you want to do or something you don't.
Find the $10 blackjack table and try it there.
Much.
Exactly. I like that. That's a good point. It's a good point. So along with like DJ mentioned, the topic of discipline we could talk for hours about. The topic of discipline touches everything we talked about so far and everything we're going to talk about in the future. I mean, it's all about the discipline, and part of the discipline, like I started saying before, is not chasing your bets. You can't be chasing. You can't be doing that. It doesn't work in the long run. Just you lose, forget it, go on to the next day. Yeah, you're going to have those days and those weeks. A lot of times I do bet sometimes 4, 5, 6, 7 games, and yes, I do bomb out and go 0-7 one night. I throw it out the window. I'm at it again the next day. I forget about it. You have to have, and you got to forget about that same way. You got to forget that you went 0-7. You got to forget that you went 7-0. The next day, yeah, you're happy. Hey, I went 7-0. Everybody, good job, Dom. Good job. Okay, what have you done for me lately? On to the next games, man. Don't let those big wins creep into your mind, because in the long run, they're going to end up hurting you. But